welcome back to more Italy stuff. I may have moved to Italy, but my Stanley Cup is still with me. Okay, today we're getting into must-have apps when you travel to Italy. There are a lot of apps that we use just in Italy that people in the US don't use. And you will need these on your Italy trip. You need to trust me on that. So grab a coffee, grab a tea, and let's get into it. Okay, when you arrive in Italy, you might want to call a taxi. There are multiple apps to use taxis. Italy has Uber technically, but essentially Uber is used to call other taxis or what is called NCCs. NCCs are like, you know, in America when you get like a limo, and they're like serious drivers. Like that's what their main job is. It's not like something they do on the side. That is what like an NCC is. In the US, like anyone can pretty much apply to do Uber with their own car. In Italy, that is actually illegal. So you need to have like a specific license and it's expensive apparently. Anyway, in Italy, Uber is used to call taxis. So you can use Uber or you can download other taxi apps like Eat Taxi, Free Now, or We Taxi. The pro of using these taxi services is it shows you beforehand how much the maximum charge is going to be. Specifically on We Taxi, It Taxi, and Free Now, it will not like let the taxi driver charge you more than what is shown on the app. And you can actually pay in the app with Apple Pay, PayPal, or credit card. Very convenient. I highly recommend you use that. Next is the train apps. I just made a video on the trains. You can find it in the description if you need a refresher on how to take the trains in Italy. But to buy train tickets, you should use either the Prenotazione app, which is for the regional and high-speed trains that are the national trains. Italo, which sells only high-speed trains and it is a private train company. Or you can use apps like Trainline. These are third-party apps that kind of like compare all of the prices of different trains and give you the best option. Next is Move It. Italy has Google Maps. Google Maps works very well and it will show you the best way to get from point A to point B. I personally use Move It to see exactly when the next bus is coming. In cities like Rome, where sometimes the buses are very delayed, this is very useful. You can also find the best way to get somewhere using this app. If you like look where you are on the map and zoom in on a station and you click the station, it will show you how long until the next bus comes. You can use this in most cities. A little parenthesis on the bus and to get into the metro. I personally do not buy the ticket on these apps. I just tap with my card and pay for the ticket that way. Next is an eSIM app. This is not sponsored. I did a sponsorship for them over on the other social media platforms, but I did use this app a lot on our honeymoon. I have used it in the US. I have used it in Europe. It is an eSIM app called Airlo. There are a bunch of other eSIM apps, but I was able to buy like 5 gigabytes of internet and data. It essentially creates a virtual SIM card on your phone. You don't need to make a new phone number and it will just give you internet for the time that you are in Italy. So you can still use like iMessage, you can still use your social media, and you can use Google Maps to get around. It's super easy to install. It worked really well for me. It seems to be cheaper than most data plans from like AT&T, T-Mobile, or Verizon. So check it out. Next is Get Your Guide and Viator or Viator. I don't actually know how to say it. I have used these two websites all over the world. I've used them to book excursions, food tours, riverboat tours, museum entrances. I have found that booking with Get Your Guide and Viator is probably the best way because you can pay on the app. It's very efficient and the prices are very like good. You can look at the reviews as well. If you go into the city center of like Florence and you find people trying to sell you a tour, you're not gonna know if it's good because it doesn't have the reviews. Okay, if you want to order delivery, if you're tired one night and you want to order food to your hotel or your Airbnb, there are a few delivery apps that we use in Italy. Deliveroo, the next is called Glovo, and there's also Just Eat. These are pretty much delivery apps like DoorDash. The difference is because they're in big cities, they deliver on the bike or on a moped. It's very Italian. It has a bunch of stuff, like we order pizza all the time. You can order hamburgers, you can order Chinese food, you can order sushi, you can order whatever you want. Next is WhatsApp. I know a lot of countries use WhatsApp. In the US, we don't really use WhatsApp that much. We typically use like iMessage. Anyway, if you are booking an apartment, for example, or if you're going on a guided tour, these people will likely want to contact you using WhatsApp. The reason we don't use iMessage so much in Italy is because not everyone has an iPhone. Actually, a lot of people don't have an iPhone. You can keep your phone number. You don't have to change phone number. You download the app. It's free. It sends you a verification code, and then you can use it if you need it. Next is Bounce. I have used Bounce all over the world. It is a luggage storage app, but Bounce essentially, like, you look on the map where you are and you can book how many pieces of luggage you have, and it tells you what time you can book from, and you pay in the app. Then you arrive. All you have to do is show them the QR code. They scan it, and then you pick up your bags at the end of the day or even after a few days. Next is Doctors in Italy. This is not an app, rather a website. If you get sick while you are in Italy, unfortunately that can happen. I have had my parents use Doctors in Italy when they come to Italy from the US. My parents don't use travel insurance when they come to Italy. My dad felt like sick and he needed a doctor's visit. They do telehealth visits too, and he paid like 25 euros for a doctor's visit. He was prescribed an antibiotic, and yeah, essentially it is a website that has in-person offices too in Florence and Rome and maybe somewhere else. All of their doctors speak English, and they don't just have primary care doctors, they have specialists as well. So this is a fantastic app to use even if you live in Italy. I personally use this company. I do speak Italian, but their doctors are just really, really wonderful. So even if you are an expat in Italy, I would highly recommend using it. Next is the Fork. Now you can use the Fork or just Google reservations, but when you come to Italy, a lot of restaurants you will have to book in advance, especially during the Jubilee year. This year is going to be pretty busy, so I would definitely recommend booking your restaurants in advance. This doesn't mean weeks in advance, but maybe a few days in advance, or even the same day in the morning, I would book your restaurant. I know that calling an Italian restaurant on the phone might seem scary, so if you don't want to talk to people on the phone, use the Fork or like Google reservation. Payment. So in Italy, it is actually illegal for places to not accept card. There are some exceptions to this, like the tabacchi, which is like the tobacco store, and I think for some other little things, but in stores and restaurants, you can pay by card. I personally do not take my physical cards anywhere with me. I only use Apple Pay or Google Pay. So make sure you have those before your trip, because you can use those to pay in Italy. And finally, for booking your actual trip to Italy. For hotels, I personally use booking.com or Airbnb. I don't really know of a lot of other platforms to use for booking hotels. These are the most common ones that I think we use in Italy. The reason I use Booking is because I have a lot of points, so I get a lot of discounts, and I personally prefer using Booking for hotels specifically, but you can also use Booking for apartments. I would not recommend you rent from places like that you find on Facebook groups or things that are like, let's only pay cash. Make sure it is reputable, make sure it has a lot of good reviews, and make sure it is not a completely new booking, because people can get scammed. And finally, for flights, this isn't an app, but it is a website. I personally book my flights to and from the US from Italy. I use Google Flights. This is because you can like compare the pricing, and then it takes you to the actual airline website. I do not book flights with any third party. I am very strict about this. There have been horror stories of people booking their flight with a third party, and then the ticket, something happened, and then the airline didn't communicate with a third party, and their booking was essentially non-existent. If you have booked to the third party app, do not worry. Just maybe import your flight information into the actual airline website. Wow, those are a lot of apps. If there are any other apps that you watching this video know about and think are useful, let's help each other in the comments, and comment below any other questions you might have about traveling to Italy. And I will see you next time. Thank you for being here, and grazie. I will see you next week.